Welcome everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on this exciting webinar, Building the Financial Model Dashboard. My name is Sonia Martin. I am the CEO at Bayfield Training, and I am delighted to have a key professional on the financial modeling subject presenting for us today. Her name is Danielle Stein Fairhurst, financial modeler, author, corporate trainer, and principal at Plum Solutions, which is a financial modeling company based in Australia. And she is indeed based in Sydney. And Danielle, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It's fantastic to be here. I am based in Sydney in Australia. So I think you normally host these a little bit later in the day. So thank you for accommodating me because of the time difference. So it's fantastic to be here. So as Sonia mentioned, I'm a financial modeling specialist, but what I'm here to talk to you about today is building the financial model dashboard. And it is actually a topic that I feel quite strongly about because we are numbers people. We are used to looking at numbers all day, every day. And I hate to say it, but numbers can be just a little bit boring. And as financial modelers, we often think that our numbers and the output of our financial models are the absolutely most fascinating thing that ever was, and I'm afraid it's not. And so sometimes we realise that, and so we then go ahead and put some colour onto our financial models. We try to sort of, we think that we're going to jazz it up a little bit by putting in some colour, and we think that people are going to pay more attention to our financial models if we put some sort of racy colours and, some flashing numbers and some lights and some traffic lights or something like that. And I'm afraid to tell you that there's a little bit more to it than that. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is how to actually take the output of your financial model and how to make it useful and interesting to other people, and especially for financial information, the output of a financial model, a dashboard, and particularly perhaps to people who aren't even in finance as well. So we'll talk about why dashboards are so useful, particularly for financial information. We'll also have a look at some of the tools that you can use for building dashboards, and I'd also like to take you through a bit of a case study. I have a real estate model that that's already been built, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to just add a really simple dashboard over the top of that. And then lastly, we'll go over some of the principles of dashboard design. So the first thing I'd like to cover with you is why dashboards are so useful in finance. So we are used to looking at data. We are living in the age of big data. So we are being constantly bombarded by millions and millions of pieces of information all the time. And our jobs in finance or as analysts is often to make sense of that data, to actually take those millions of points of information and actually make them meaningful and actually turn them into something that we can use. And often the purpose of that is so that we can actually make decisions based on the data. And this can be a little bit tricky. When I first started my career, I would spend a huge amount of time building the financial model, and I'd be ever so proud of it because I'd spent, days or weeks or even months on it, and I'd print the output of my model and I'd have it in, black and white and grid lines, and I'd very proudly present it to the decision makers, and they'd say, oh, that's fantastic, and off they go. And I could tell they weren't really paying much attention to the output of my model. And I soon learned that you have to you basically need to do the hard work for people. People don't like looking at Excel, I know. They don't like looking at numbers. And so what we need to do is make it or put it into a format that's really easy for them to understand. And I really think that social media has got a lot to answer for. People are just, our attention span has become so much shorter than it was even just a few years ago. If you can't give me the information immediately, like on a single page in a format that I can quickly understand and make decisions, then I'm not interested. And we do get so used to scrolling through social media and having things grab our attention quickly or not. And we very, very quickly make decisions about whether or not to pay attention to something, whether a piece of information is worthy of our attention. So one of the best ways of taking a lot of information, particularly financial information, is using a dashboard report. So Stephen Few was often called the father of the modern dashboard, and I've got several books by Stephen Few behind me there. And his definition of a dashboard is that it's a visual display of the most important information that is consolidated and arranged on a single screen so the information can be monitored at a glance. And that's really important, that you can see straight away what's going on. And so your job as the financial modeler is to figure out what they need to know. Your financial model is really, really complex. There's thousands and thousands of numbers in there. So your job is to take all of the pieces of information out of that financial model and put them into a format that people can actually make decisions with. And a dashboard is a fantastic way to do that, because financial data is complex. Presenting financial information can be really tricky, especially for people who don't have a financial background. People won't admit that they don't understand financial jargon. I know a lot of you are in the real estate industry. I know a little bit about the real estate industry, but I'm a financial modeling specialist, so I know a lot about different types of different industries. And I know that every industry, real estate included, has particular jargon, and people are all often they don't want to ask the questions. So it's really important that we present the information in a way that people can understand, things like EBITDA or ROI or all these sorts of terms. If you haven't got a financial background, you may not necessarily know exactly what it means. And let me give you an example. What we often, if you've put together a set of financial statements, and you might, want to present something like this. I'd hope that you would not present something that would look like this. So Sonia, we're going to do a bit of a poll just to make sure everybody is still with me and is still listening. And I'd like you to tell me, what is the net income? So I showed you a picture of the financial statements, and very, very quickly, I'd like you to tell me whether you can remember whether or not, or what the net income was. Was it 25,000, 172,000, a negative, or have you got no idea? So I flashed that up on the screen really, really quickly. So just vote if you let me know what you think was the number. So how are we going, Sonia? Are you getting votes? That's probably...
we have 25 already, 67%, so let's end it.
Okay, great. And maybe you can share the results.
Sure.
You can see.
And just
most people, that's what I thought. Most people have got no idea because I presented something on the screen that was just numbers. So presenting something like that is really not the best way of presenting information, particularly financial information, black and white, and certainly putting grid lines. When you're using Excel, if you go to view and then untick the grid lines, that's probably the best thing that you can do to make it look a little more interesting. But showing it's just a horrible. Excel is not a presentation tool, absolutely not. So a better way perhaps to present some information like this would be to reveal it, to say, okay, here's your gross revenue, and from that gross revenue you've got your inventory, your direct costs, other sales, so that they can sort of see compared side by side, the amount. And then how much is left over is your gross income. And then of that gross income, you've got to pay your staff, marketing, facilities, and G&A. And oh my goodness, we've only got a small amount of operating income left. And this is how much the taxes are. And that is your net income. And hopefully I had you on the edge of your seat as I revealed parts of that chart. Well, maybe not, but to actually reveal a chart like that is more interesting than just showing a static list of numbers. Particularly if you're in a live presentation, if you're having to give a presentation, I wouldn't just whack a pile of numbers up. It's so much better if you show it visually, and even to reveal parts of the chart like that. It's nothing earth-shattering. It's just a waterfall chart. It's just built in Excel, and I'll just use a few animations to reveal parts of it. So we do love numbers. We are working in finance, or we're working in financial modelling, and we do love numbers. And just because you love numbers doesn't mean that everybody does. So if you just overwhelm them with numbers and you want them to make a decision based on your financial model, they won't be able to, because they won't admit that they're confused. They just simply will ask you to go away and find some more data, or just, preferably just go away. If you just keep giving them too many numbers and data that they can't understand. So that was the first part about why dashboards are so useful in finance. So what I'd like to talk about now is to just go over a couple of the dashboard tools that we've got available to us, and then I'll jump into a quick case study in Excel. So basically your options are Excel, or Excel, you guessed it. I know that there are a lot of other tools that you can use. Certainly there are tons of add-ins to Excel. There are lots of other in real estate, I know there's a lot of other modeling tools that you can use, which are fantastic. But in terms of a general tool that everybody uses, Excel is certainly the most widely used. In modern Excel, which is anything from 2010 onwards, Power Pivot, if you have a large quantity of data, you perhaps use Power Pivot add-in. If you need to cleanse your data, so if it's something that you're having to do over and over again, if you're having to grab some data out of the system, pull it into Excel or Power BI and manipulate it and cleanse it, you would perhaps use Power Query. Or lastly, if you need to just do a visual, and you need to share that with other people, then perhaps Power BI is a good option as well. But when you're considering putting together the dashboard, if you're building financial models, and you're probably going to be doing this in Excel. So generally, I would say Excel formulas are going to be the most common method. And that's the example that I'm going to show you in a minute. It's just a plain Excel model using Excel formulas. And then we just use formulas to pull it through into a dashboard. You can also use pivot tables, which is great. If you've got lots and lots of data, you might use pivot tables, or you might use Power Query and Power BI as well. So just a bit of an overview of the Excel family. So most of the time we're sitting in Excel that we all know and love. You might hook into Power Pivot, or you might hook into Power Query, or you might be using Power BI. But you can sit in Excel and you can access Power Pivot and Power Query, or you can sit in Power BI and you can access Power Pivot and Power Query from there as well. So that's just a bit of an overview of the different tools that are available in the Microsoft suite. So let's jump in now and take a look at a real estate model. Now, this is an example that comes from the Financial Modelling World Cup. So the World Cup is a competition that started only a couple of months ago. It's a monthly competition. So if you're into financial modelling, you might want to test your skills and see how you stack up against the best in the world. And they've had a few examples that are to do with real estate. So I've just grabbed an example here, and I'm just going to share my screen now. And what you do with the competition, you've got 2 hours, and you get given a blank model, and then you need to take that model and answer some questions about it. So basically you need to build a model. You get given a cover page that looks like this, and you get given an assumption page, and then you need to build very quickly. You need to build the calculations within the model, and then you need to answer some questions based on that model. So the real estate example that we've been given is that you have a construction budget, And the questions that we need answered are basically, you know, how much is the debt, how much is the loan, what's the IRR. There's all sorts of variables, like we've got different types of unit, different sizes of units. They are being leased out at varying rates as we go forward, different, so those are the assumptions all here. You've also got some occupancy rates as well. So all of those assumptions are getting pulled through into the model. So it looks something like that. So those are the construction costs there. Now, this model is all very nicely formatted. This is a solution model that was given to us. I didn't build this. This is the completed model. When you're actually competing in the World Cup, your model doesn't look quite as nice as this. You're just trying to get it done as quickly as possible, so you don't really worry about the formatting, and you certainly don't worry about a dashboard. You don't worry about making it look pretty. But this is the completed version. It would look something like this. So this is your rent calculations. You've got your month's operations. You've got your occupancy, the number of units that are leased, and then of course you've got your flags down the bottom. And then on the last tab, now Sonia, I'll send a copy of this out so that we can make this available, because I know how much people love to take a look at models. And I've actually asked the organisers of the Financial Modelling World Cup if it would be all right. So they don't normally share the solution models publicly, but we are going to make this one available to the webinar attendees. So this is your supporting calculation. So the idea, the output of this model basically was to calculate the cash flow, the construction loan, and so we've got the construction loan and the permanent loan. So there's two different types of loans. So I took the model that had been provided. So this was an existing model that I hadn't built myself. So I kind of was fairly familiar with how it worked. And I took the dashboard and I actually built a dashboard over the top of that. So I had to sort of firstly had to understand what the model was telling us, and then had to pick out a few key pieces of information to do that. So the way that I did it basically was to grab, let's say, for example, with the rent revenue, what I did was to grab the data like that, hold down the control key, and just highlight all of it all the way across. And then I also included the starts, and then I just created the charts based on that, and then cut and paste the chart. So it's really quite a simple process of taking an existing model and then creating a dashboard over the top of it. So that's how I created the rent one there. Similarly with the number of, so those are the two different types of units. So you can see over time the number of units that are leased. This here is the loan balance. So this was the construction loan first of all, and then the permanent loan. So you can see how the construction loan sort of tailed off and then the permanent loan came up. And then here is the total construction cost. So this was at the beginning. So it shows the land acquisition costs, soft costs and hard costs. And then in the middle, we've got a little text box, which is so it's really quite low tech solution. So we've actually used it's actually using a little calculation here that calculates it all there. So if you were to go to the assumptions and you were to say, well, actually, I think the land acquisition is going to be more like, if you were to change that from that number there, change that to 10 million instead, you can see how everything changes, and you can see how all of the calculations in the model changes as well. And I've done a similar thing there, so that's also using some text. So that was just a bit of an idea of the way that you can take an existing model and actually build a dashboard over the top of that. So let's jump in now to the last part of today, which is I just wanted to go over a couple of the principles of dashboard design. And I think probably the thing that people find most difficult about building dashboards is deciding the design and deciding what sort of chart. So I thought I'd just show you a couple of options of charts. So you can, let's say you've got 4 different departments and you're trying to decide which chart, whether you would use a line chart, a radar chart, a column, a bar with perhaps with numbers on it, a bar, a column, something like that, or whether you would use a pie chart, perhaps a donut, or even a 3D pie chart. So Sonia's going to just launch another poll for you. So I'd like to know what you guys think. Which chart do you think displays our message best? Whether you think it's the line, the radar, the column, so chart 3 is the column, chart 4 is the bar, whether it's 3D or whether we should use a pie chart, or even an exploding pie chart like that. So I'm interested to see what people think, because this was actually just using 4 numbers, 4 different departments, and making a comparison of all 4. So yeah, how are the responses going, Sonia?
Very well. We have 73%, so I can just end the polling now, I think. Mm-hmm. So end it, right. And I will share the results.
Interesting. So most people, most people said either chart 3 or chart 4, which is great. I tend to agree. A line chart really denotes some sort of continuum across the x-axis, which it doesn't have. I don't really know what chart 2 is saying. A chart 3 or 4 is quite good because it gives us a comparison. Chart 5 makes it really hard to compare because of the pointy hats. And yeah, pie charts are make things really, really difficult to compare. So yeah, you know, when I said that when you create a dashboard, the meaning of the visual or the meaning of the chart should really leap out at you. And this is an example that comes from that model that I just showed you. And it's a donut chart. I'm not sure if you guys can follow what it's saying. I actually think it's probably not the best way of displaying the data. So it's showing number of units leased, or basically the occupancy is around the outside and the number of units is along the inside. So it's not a fantastic way of displaying information. So just be really careful when you're building a visual that you display it in the best possible way, and that's probably not the best way. So, okay. We might just jump forward a little bit. So just a couple of points on visualization. So meaning should just jump out at you. If I were to say how many 5s, can you read how many 5s we've got there? Can you, you should be able to see, it might take you a few minutes, but you should be able to count how many 5s we've got there. It is a lot easier if I do that, isn't it? So to be able, it just makes it a lot easier if you use some color, and the meaning will just jump out at you a lot better. So in conclusion, when you're building a dashboard or when you're having to present the output of your financial model or your financial information, I think it's really important that you create meaning from, you know, all of this maze of information, all of this, you know, what's going on. It can be, a financial model particularly can be quite hard to follow if you're not familiar with it, if you haven't looked through it before. So your job, if you're needing to present the output of the financial model, so your job is to take the meaning from the model, to find the story in the numbers, to make sense or to really interpret what the model is telling us, and take that information and to tell the story, to use a dashboard or use visuals to actually present and tell the story of what the financial model is telling us, so that we can then make decisions based on the data. So that was pretty much what I have for you today. So how are we doing for time, Sonia? Do we have any questions or comments from people? So we'll throw it out there now.
Yeah, so we have 10 minutes now for Q&A. So we don't have any questions just now. So I would like the attendees to send us some questions. In the meantime, I can kick off the Q&A session.
Okay.
I have a few questions for you. So. Okay. So you mentioned power pivot Power Query and Power BI.
Yeah.
Which of those do you use the most to create dashboards, and which are the difference between them, and which one is the most user-friendly?
Oh my gosh, it's like you're asking me to choose between my children. I can't say which one is my favorite. Yeah, I use all of those a lot, and it really depends on the situation. Quite often, if it's just a straightforward financial model, I would just use Excel formulas like I showed you in the demo. Power Query I am using a lot more. So Power Query is just really useful, not so much for financial modeling as such, but when you're probably more for reporting, for cleansing data, for repeating data, whereas Power BI is more for when you're wanting to build a dashboard and to be able to share it with people. So I think it really depends on where the data is coming from and the purpose of, what the output that you're wanting to show.
Great. I think we have a question. One of our attendees is asking, would you recommend any book with exercise to practice designing dashboards?
Yeah. Oh gosh, probably one of my favorites is Storytelling with Data, Cole Nussbaumer-Knaflic. That was her first book. I've got a copy of it just there. And she's actually just brought out a new one called Let's Practice or something with storytelling with data, which that's a fantastic book. My books are more about financial modeling, not so much about dashboards.
Great. Actually have a couple of more questions for you, Daniel, if you don't mind. People nowadays, they are using quite a lot infographic, and I would like to know what the difference between an infographic and a dashboard.
Good question. They can be sort of used interchangeably, but typically an infographic is for an infographic is more for sort of public consumption or for social media often, and it'll be kind of cartoonish and really attractive and really appealing, and a way of like not dumbing down, but making the data really easy for people to understand, whereas a dashboard is usually for business use. So a dashboard is usually a little bit more serious, within a company and trying to understand what's going on in the company. Infographics are typically quite long and skinny as well, so you sort of scroll down. So they're a kind of a way of taking information and making it easy for people to understand something for basically for lay people who don't necessarily understand the industry.
Great. Okay. I have seen lots of infographics nowadays, and it's true, social media use it quite a lot. We actually have another question which follows up my previous question, Danielle, and it says, how would you do the dashboard you did today in either Power BI or Query?
It's funny because when I was preparing it, I actually tried to do it in Power BI because you can build the model in Excel and then you can push it through into Power BI. And I built it, so I had all the outputs that I showed you with all of the the rent or the leasing agreements, because it went out for, quite a large, there's a fair bit of data in there, and went out for a large number of years. And I pulled it into Power BI and then started to build the dashboard in Power BI. And then I thought, why would you? It's just not really necessary. It was actually a better solution. So I did try it. And then I thought it's actually a better solution to leave it in Excel, because you can then, you retain the functionality of Excel, because once you put it into Power BI, you can't really go back into Excel. So you're having to go back to Excel, make changes in the model, and then push it through into Power BI. So it wasn't really the best solution. Yeah, you would just use that as the source. So you would use that for the question is how would you do it? You would actually use that model as the source, and you would pull it through into Power BI, from Power BI from Excel into Power BI.
Thank you very much, Danielle. So we have another question from Francisco, and he's saying, is there an online course for financial modeling that you recommend?
Absolutely, mine. I have lots of online courses.
Great.
Yeah, there's lots of online. Certainly nowadays there's lots of online financial modelling. If you are serious about being a financial modeller or pursuing it as a career, you should consider sitting the FMI financial modelling qualification. So that's an exam. So it's like a level 1 certification. You could become a certified financial modeller, and the next one is coming up in April.
Great. We have another question, I think. Yeah. So Adam is asking, would you say that you use the ability to run scenarios in Power BI?
Yeah. Hi, Adam. I know Adam. I think he means, would you lose the ability to run scenarios? Yeah, you do. You do a little bit. Traditionally scenarios in financial models, you actually run through the calculations, and once you end up in Power BI, you can run scenarios. You can do the modelling, but you sort of lose the ability to have single cells in Power BI. So you're really just looking at the dashboard. And to sort of input and to input the data, and you sort of lose the ability to be able to run your hands through the data, to actually touch and feel and actually make changes through the model once you're in Power BI. I don't know. I guess as a financial modeler, I like being in Excel because I can make the changes more quickly in terms of scenarios that way.
Right. So we have another question regarding Power BI. So what is the advantage of Power BI so far from what you say today thus far? Seems like each time you lost something.
I might have given Power BI a bit of a bad rap. I do love Power BI, but I suppose modelling or building for building financial models, I don't think you can go past just standard Excel. Power BI is way more powerful. If you have the use case for Power BI is when you have large quantities of information and you're having to pull it through from a database. It absolutely leaves Excel for dead. So that's really the real reason that you would use Power BI, definitely.
Right. I got a question related to real estate now, which I'm interested. So if you were to present some data to a commercial property investor, what would it be the key areas of the financial model that you will include in the dashboard, and how would you organize the data so it can be read in kind of a storytelling way?
Yeah, that's a really hard. It's hard. It's people often ask me that. They say, "Oh, can I have a template for a financial model, or can I have a template for a dashboard?" And it really depends on the situation and on the industry. So even within the real estate industry, there are so many different. Every project is different, and every company is different, every project within that company is different. And quite often the person using the model has different objectives or different reasons for, or different things they want to get out of the model. And that is the skill of the financial modeler. I feel as though we think that the BI or business intelligence or automation is the answer, that automation is going to take over our jobs. But I think that there will always be a place for the financial modeler who knows the industry, who knows what the decision makers need to know, what they want to get out of the financial model. And so in a real estate model, you might always have, you'd always have cash flow, you'd always have loans, you'd always have debt, but the way that you display it and the way that you lay it out, I think is really very much going to depend on the project.
Yeah, I think that and we have another question, I think, related to this from Priscilla. She's saying, how do you choose KPIs just based on your experience, or do you discuss this with decision makers?
Yeah, I think when you go to the decision makers and say, okay, we're going to build a dashboard, what do you want to see? That's the wrong question. Like they don't know what they want to see. And so I think it's hard knowing what to do. And I think this is where your skill is to find story, to really tease the information out of the data, to build the model and then say, okay, what is this model telling me? And just try different visuals and say, well, is that something interesting? Is that showing me something interesting? And I think that's hard. Actually deciding what to show. It can be really difficult, and often you'll come up with a first draft and they'll say, oh, it would be really interesting if we showed it this way, and lots of iterations. It is hard work. It is you should put aside enough time for putting together the visuals. It does. Building it might be quick, but actually building the right visuals can take time.
Yeah. Okay. We got one last question, if you don't mind, Danielle. And so Adam is asking, so when if you are taking actuals out of MYOB/0, I don't really know what that means. So you
just the accounting system. Yeah.
Building out an integrated forecast, do you think it's just better to stay in Excel?
I think it depends on what you want out of it. So what Adam is saying is that if you were to so you've got all your data, you've got your financials in a system, whether it's MYOB or whatever it is, your financial information is sitting in the system, and then you need to make, so he says to build out an integrated forecast. So if it's the forecast, you just want the numbers, then yeah, Excel is fine. But if you want to be able to every month go click a button, push, bang, create a dashboard, then Power BI would be a better solution. Right. So it depends on the output that you want to get.
Right. So thank you very much, Danielle. I think we're running out of time for more questions. But I mean, if you're happy, yeah, I loved it. And then, I can always share your email address on the post-webinar email, so people can come to you directly if they have any questions about your company or anything related to the books. So I will be happy to do that. I will also add the Excel spreadsheet to the post-webinar emails, so people can have a look at the model. And yeah, I think that's it from today. I would like to thank Danielle for her time. It's been a great presentation, great discussion, loved it. And thank you to all of the attendees. And I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, have a great day and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sonia. Bye, everyone.